All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jim Bray. I'm the chair of the Environmental Commission in Lower Makefield Township, and we are officially starting the EAC meeting of February 13th, 2025. The first item on the agenda is the review approval of the January 9th, 2025 meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes? I've looked at it. We've made a little revision or two, but I think it's pretty good now. What about everybody else? Are they okay with it?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Yep. Can I second?
Yeah. Oh, no. Okay. Dominique, and we need a second.
I'll
I
second.
second.
Okay. Second, and all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So it is a done deal. The next item on the agenda is the 2024 Long Range Master Tree Plan, full planning update, and the proposed spring plantings. Now, I'm working with Jim Majewski on the plantings that took place late last year. The initial plan called for 147 trees in various areas, and we added another 18. So the total came out to be 165 trees. What I need from Jim is that we're trying to keep a good exact running record of the exact number of trees that were planted, where they were planted, and the specific species. So Jim, I think, probably has that info now. I just emailed him the other day, but if not, he should have it very shortly. And as soon as he gets that, I will compile the info and let everybody know what we have. Also, now is actually the opportune time to start talking about a proposed spring planting. And I am going to be talking to Jim Majewski about that as well. Now, if anybody on the EAC has a specific area that they would like to see us get started in, let me know. I mean, I think in this plan, there were about 30 some locations in various areas in the township. Uh, so, we have a lot to pick from. Jim also mentioned the fact that in the spring planning, there might be the possibility of putting in some smaller trees and have the community get involved in the planning. So I think this is probably a good idea too. I think community involvement is very, very important, but we can't have community involvement in 2.5 to 3 inch caliper trees because of the total weight. I mean, they're like 200 or 300 pounds. So this is something that we have the professionals do. So as soon as I get some concrete information from Jim Majewski, I will let everybody know. Any questions? All right. The next item on the agenda is recycling. And I think we need a date for the spring recycling event. Alan, do you have anything in mind?
I was thinking about that and to spread them out over the year a little bit more, why don't we have it in May instead of April? Because we just had one in January.
Yeah, I
And
think so.
how about May 17th?
All right, I should have brought my calendar with me, but May 17th, that's a Saturday, right?
Yep.
I don't know of anything else that's going on at that time.
Yeah, the
Well,
weather's
why don't we
supposed to be
list?
good that day.
I'm sorry, what'd you
Alan
say?
has it on good authority. The weather is supposed to be
Oh,
good
okay.
that
Yeah,
day.
well,
It's not Mother's Day, is it?
no, I don't think so.
No.
Well, Alan, I trust implicitly. Alan is a meteorologist by trade, and he's my go-to meteorologist because the last time I looked at the weather station I have, it said 4 hour period, 99% rain and snow, and it didn't do anything. So, my theory is that these people, they look at the instruments, but they don't look out the window. So, all right, Alan, you're on, and you're going to be held liable for the fact that if it's not a good weather day, we're going to have to discuss that. But I think
Okay.
May 17th as a tentative day sounds pretty good.
Yeah, nice time of year.
All right, let me see what we have next. The single trash hauler analysis. Uh, All right, well, John's here, member of the Board of Supervisors. And as you know, John, we're finished with this analysis and we're just waiting for the board to give us a date to present it. So I think we were talking also, March 5th would be a good date for us, I think, Alan. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I spoke to Dan or briefly about this, and it sounded like March 5th might be it. He didn't commit, but it sounded like it might work out with all the other stuff going on
Okay.
with supervisors. So I haven't received the official word yet, but we'll say tentatively.
Okay. Yeah,
Have you
that's
heard
good.
anything, John? A date?
Not as far as a date. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, Dan gets to choose the dates for those things this year. But there's some discussion on the initial stuff and there might be a suggestion that we might want to talk further about what's in the PowerPoint presentation about what's talked about at the meeting in terms of how to present it best in terms of understanding, so that people understand sort of the trade-offs and nuances about the decision going forward. So just I think board members in generally, and I can't speak for all of them, just in initial discussions did read through everything and were thinking, hey, this is good, but we need to make sure that we communicate in a way that people who are not intimately familiar with some elements of things. So they were saying, hey, if you could talk to them a little bit about working on the sort of presentation deck part of it to present the report in its best light, I'd be happy to help with that if you wanted to talk about that.
I
Well,
actually put together something when we thought we were going to do it in January.
Yes, and yeah.
Yeah, so I have like 12 PowerPoint slides. You want me to send them to you to look at?
Yeah, if you could send them to me, I think I may
Sure.
have seen them before, and I can give you some suggestions just in terms of the stuff in there.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So you'll send those slides to John, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
will
All right.
within
Yeah, and
24 hours.
I agree with you, John. I think, firstly, the problem, this is not complicated, but it is complicated. Okay. What I mean by that is that the concept is pretty simple, but there's just a lot of different ways of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we, in our analysis, listed every single nuance, we'd be looking at 50 items. So what we did is from a logical viewpoint, we took a good look at it based upon what other communities were doing, and we made a list of recommendations. Now, of course, the board is free to take our recommendations, partly do whatever they want with them.
Mm-hmm.
But this was what we considered the best way to proceed. But best, might not necessarily be best based upon what the supervisors want to do. But
And the feedback I've gotten is generally very positive, but more about they want to make sure that we explain the trade-offs between choices so that people understand, so that, when it's presented, people feel, oh, okay, I understand that. I understand why I could be for it or against it, or why I would choose this option or that option. Just some simple, best ways to kind of communicate that to everybody so that regular people who are not as intimately familiar with it would feel comfortable with that. And
well, if it's okay with you, Alan, we'll send that to you.
Yeah.
Maybe you can work with Alan.
I'd be happy to. Yeah.
Presentation is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. The more fingers in the pie, the better.
Sometimes.
Okay. Any other discussion on single trash hauler? All right. The next item on the agenda is Birdtown update. Jeanne?
Well, there's not too much going on. Except we're having a naughty by nature, thank you. Naughty by nature lovely lecture tomorrow, and it is, oh, I'm sorry, Saturday. I'm so anxious to see it, and I thought it was tomorrow. We hope everybody will come. Everybody's welcome, and it's an unusual lecture about insects and animals and how they reproduce. So hopefully we'll see you there. And other than that, we're working with Eastern bird, bluebirds is going to be something that's coming up for our bird town. And so that's it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that update. And we'll be talking a little later in the agenda about the lecture that's going to be held this Saturday. All right. Update on land use plans. There's also a gentleman with us today, Alan, in the audience who's very interested in this Wright Farm development. So anyway, would you bring us up to date on the land use plans?
Sure. Unlike the previous months, we have some activity. First, the Wright Farm development, 47 homes. We sent in our comments this last weekend. And if you recall, there were 6 comments. The first one dealt with the narrow open space lot between the development and the very busy Yardley Newtown Road. And then the next 4 were concerning vegetative buffers and street trees mainly around the development to shelter it from farming operations. And Yardley Newtown Road that gets like over 45,000 cars a day traveling on it. It's very busy. And the last one was pointed out that a development like this, of this size, needed 2 public accesses to the development. And this, the plan submitted only had 1. It was coming from Surrey Lane from the north into it. So those were our 6 comments. There was a planning commission meeting this Monday that was well attended. It was crowded. Most of the people were from Bridal Estates, and they were concerned about the additional traffic coming from these new homes through their neighborhoods. A lot of comments were on that. Our comments on the requiring a vegetative buffer around the development, mainly, especially to the south, where the road is, Yardley Newtown Road. The Planning Commission liked that idea, and they're going to probably be recommending that to the supervisors. The problem is the Farmland Preservation wanted no buffers anywhere around the development because they might farm that 10-acre open space narrow tract I talked about. So at the meeting, it was kind of farmland preservation versus EAC, but I think they're going with our idea, but there also is an idea that we meet with farmland preservation to discuss how we could put these buffers in, because I mean, there are ways. They're worried about shading of the fields just in case they do put crops in there. And you could put the vegetative buffer to the north of the farmed land, and that way the shading wouldn't affect it because the sun always comes from the south. So the shade would be to the north of the vegetative buffer, which would be on the house side, not on the farm side of the property. So they went with that. They're going to recommend another transportation study on the impacts on the Bridal Veil neighborhood. And one other thing. Oh, they want to make sure that the current Patterson Lane is maintained enough so farmland preservation farmers can move from the field to the west of the development to the farmland preservation property to the north of the development. And there's no problem with that. That's fine. So the Planning Commission is going to continue to discuss this in the future. They didn't even get to the township engineer comments. There were so many other comments. It went well into the night. So that's the report on Wright Farm. Did Did the public want to comment on that?
Uh, Steve? Uh, I No, Steve, Alan just talked, about the right development. Is there something that you would like to comment on that? No? Okay. All right, sure.
Are you fine with that? Okay, the second thing I wanted to mention is that figure of the Shady Brook Farm Master Plan I sent out that you all saw. It's something. So we're going to be seeing this in the future, probably sometime this year. And it's very large. I'm sure you know about it, John, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like 2 or 3 times bigger than the Wegmans complex. And at least from this figure I have, it looks like all the traffic is going to be dumped out on Stony Hill Road at 3 different locations. And so traffic's going to be interesting in that area after this thing gets built. But I guess this is a heads up that it's coming, so we can look forward to that. Do you have any idea, John, when they might officially submit?
I would say that we haven't received anything that indicates an imminent submission. And there are other issues to work out. I think before that submission were to occur, there have been initial meetings that have been with supervisors in a like 2 supervisors at a time meeting. Those are early discussions to gauge feedback from supervisors, and feedback was given. I don't really want to, at this time, it's probably not proper to suggest more details because things are still not aware that I want to be respectful of potential applicants and as well. And so I can't really offer much more than that. Also, I can say that because I think one of the property owners in question did have a press release or something. So they had said that last year, I think, or the year before. So that's the one of the property owner or the property owner's intent. That's public information, so I can share that, obviously.
Well, has the property been sold?
No.
So the Flemings then still own the property then?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, the answer that would be yes.
All right.
Yeah. And the parcel of property that involves 3 municipalities. And so I believe they've begun their initial saldo process with Middletown Township for age-restricted housing. But I haven't followed where that stands with Middletown Township. So I don't know where that stands right now. That's out of the purview, obviously, of Lower Makefield. They also have a parcel or part of their parcel in Newtown Township as well.
What about that 40-acre parcel on the corner? It was my understanding that was sold by one of the Flemings who moved to Florida. And then I don't know who owns it now, Capital Health or Jefferson?
Jefferson Health owns it. It was Area and Jefferson merged, so they now own that. To the best of my knowledge, we have not received any inquiries about plans for that potential property. One might fairly assume that if there was some development in that area, that potentially they would be interested. As Alan probably remembers because he probably commented on it many years ago. This could be 5+ years ago. As I age, I don't have exact dates what I used to, but there was a health village concept presented to the Board of Supervisors.
I remember that.
Yeah, and that hasn't gone anywhere. So typically what happens is we get extensions of time. So every once in a while they'll say, okay, the time's running out, so they'll ask for another year or something like that but we have not heard anything lately. And Jim hasn't mentioned it. Majewski, who's director of community development, hasn't mentioned anything along those lines.
How much acreage is involved, not counting the 40 acres, on the corner? And it does go into Middletown, I think, too. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's over 300 acres, I think, for all the parcels.
Large.
The Bucks County Parcel Viewer is the best source of the information on that. So if anybody's listening and wants to go look at this is where you can find out who owns the property, what the zoning is on the property, the assessment. It's a visual GIS system that the county has, and that will give you the insight onto where things are with that. The township publishes in the planning development section of our website the status of everything. So that's always kept up to date by Jim Majewski, and it tells you where the applications stand, whether they've been on hold for long periods of time, whether they're approved or in process. And there's a spreadsheet or table that's on there. And that's your easy access to get at all of the plans for any upcoming development that's there, and the current status and the steps going forward with that. And that's particularly helpful if you're curious about something that's in the middle of construction, or when's it going to be online, or all those sorts of things. You can check those out there.
Okay. Do you know
I'm
of
sorry,
that 300? I'm sorry.
Excuse me. This is Lori. I'm sorry, John. Where is it that you can find that? This is Lori.
Hi,
on
Lori.
the website under planning. Hi.
Yes. So if you go to lmt.org and you go to departments, if you go to planning department, I mean, I could find it very quickly here for you. You should be able to find it.
I can. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of the 300 acres, how much of that you think is in Lower Makefield?
I don't.
Just in round numbers, John.
Over
if you have
half?
a feel for it. Okay.
Over half.
Yeah, I'd say at least half.
But then the question is the amount that would be developed if there were a development plan that were submitted is probably in the 50, 60 acre range, to kind of give people a perspective. Again, without a formal plan, and I think it's unfair for me to comment on the particulars of something that isn't publicly released.
Yeah, and certainly we would respect that, John.
Yeah. So that's where I'm like, sorry, I don't give, and I know Lori likes precise answers. So I hope you understand, Lori, if you're online, that I want to be respectful of applicants and process as to protect the township and the applicant and the community.
I also had
absolutely. That makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense.
I had a question for Alan again about the Wright Farm. Wasn't this the second review? And what actually happened to our first review, Alan?
No, it's
the
actually
developer.
Our third review.
Okay. So what's happening? I mean, who isn't answering these things?
Well, it's DeLuca's project and Ed Murphy, so the attitude there. Yeah, we submitted 2 previous comment letters and got nothing back, and we just submitted another one, and hopefully they'll respond to this one.
Well, John, maybe you could take a look at that too, because we spend good time and effort for these land use reviews, and we certainly expect them to be answered.
I would agree, and I would probably be certain that the chair probably wouldn't allow it to process forward if all reviewing committee's questions were not answered. Be a polite way of saying that.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, John. All right. Unless we have any more questions on the land use plans, we'll go to
There's one more, Jim.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
didn't mean to cut you off, Alan.
Earlier this week, a new Torbit Farm plan came in for, 78 homes, the Torbit Farm. And I will send everybody a link so you can see the plans if you're interested. It's basically the same unimaginative plan they had before, straight rows, lines of houses, no open space or parks. So it's not going to help make Lower Makefield a great place to live, but it is what it is because that's what they can do with our ordinances. They're meeting everything. They need very few waivers and no variances. So I'll send that out, but I think the Planning Commission is going to look at the new plan on March 10th. So that's where that's at. I don't anticipate many comments because there's no natural resource protected land. And my previous review of, I think it was about a year and a half ago, they submitted some plans. I didn't see much. So it's out there, though. I thought I should let people know.
Yeah, I think I was actually part of the group when this first came, up, and we took a good look at the farm. And my comment at the time to the developer was that, rather than just go up and down these lanes and everything, why don't you be a little imaginative and put some really, really heavy-duty buffering along the one side road, whatever the name of that is, and then the Newtown Yardley Road. And I think we might have commented on that, but if we haven't, Alan, maybe you might want to add a comment, as far as that's concerned, even though it doesn't particularly, lend itself to what the ordinance says. The problem with farmland is that it's basically a developer's dream, because there's just no basically impediments or any environmental issues. So, okay, well, look, thank you very much, Alan. You did your usual good job on this stuff. All right, the next item on the agenda is the proposed single-use plastics ban. And as you well know, John, we had talked to you about this before, and I think your comment at the time was that you would like to get the single-use, the single trash hauler project behind us before we get into that. So that's basically what our plan is. We think it's very, very important. Newtown just came up not too long ago with a ordinance, and I just talked to Elaine McCarran today. That's done pretty well. And at this stage, about 40% roughly of the people in the United States are covered by single-use plastic bans. So there's nothing new or sophisticated about this. And in line with that, one of the gentlemen who's giving our lecture this Saturday, Mike Wheelbacher, is a noted environmentalist, and he also gives a talk on microplastics. And we're thinking about maybe having him come here to Lower Makefield in May and just explain that whole concept. I'm kind of a novice when I'm reading about that, but what I'm reading about is pretty scary. So, all right, the next item on the agenda, excuse me, does anybody else have anything they want to talk about as far as the single-use plastic?
I think we might have a fight with the straws, but plastic straws.
Okay.
We'll see.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the EAC lecture series, and we need a couple of volunteers for our Naughty by Nature Valentine's Day celebration. We thought because of this is a lecture that Mike Wheelbacher gives, and it's very, very popular. And it's basically how insects propagate in animals. And the important thing about that is that when you know things like that, these insects are very, very beneficial to have in your yard if you want to pull in a lot of butterflies and birds and things like that. So if you can provide accommodations for them, you will see more butterflies, birds, that sort of thing. As a matter of fact, National Audubon Society states that if on an individual's property, if they have a decent smattering of native vegetation, they will pull in 10 times more birds and butterflies than if they had not done that. And of course, we're doing that. And my wife just told me that we're at a bird seed again. And last year, this is no lie, I have the bills to prove it, 700 pounds of bird seed. However, I think 400 pounds of that went to the squirrels. And my brother-in-law was over and he said, we have the fattest squirrels in Bucks County. So anyway, so the lecture series this this Saturday, and we thought because of the sexual annex and reproductive methodology of insects, it would be very appropriate to hold a Valentine's Day lecture. So what we were also doing is that to one lucky attendee will win a Valentine's Day gift. And that's not quite decided yet what it's going to be, but it'll be something appropriate. And down the road, we're also thinking about a lecture on rain gardens. It's a hot topic anymore because a lot of municipalities are really getting into that because of their stormwater management issues. And I just talked yesterday to Jeff Gall. Jeff Gall is the principal of Princeton Hydro, which is a very prestigious environmental firm located in Trenton, New Jersey. And Jeff has been said he would certainly be willing to give a lecture on rain gardens. And we're looking for a date now, probably sometime in April. So I think that's pertinent. And then also, we're talking about the possibility of having a lecture on bluebirds, and then maybe in May, the lecture on microplastics. So we have kind of a busy agenda, and I think this is really great. And this ties right into, firstly, does anybody have any comments or discussions? We need about 2 or 3 people here on Saturday. Just sign in at the front lobby, and then just another person to just kind of help out logistically. And Mike Wilbacher will actually be signing his books over in the corner there. He wrote a book called Wild Philly, and it's absolutely amazing to see that all these incredible environmental niches all around the city that, quite frankly, I never knew anything about. So anyway, after the meeting, we can discuss if somebody can help out on Saturday.
Yeah.
Now, that leads right into our next project, the updated publicity list. And Dominique Mitchell, an EAC member, is now our head publicist. And what Dominique has done is really amazing in a short period of time. I had all these notes about who to call when we had lectures and everything else, and it was kind of scattered. So I gave Dominique this information, and now we have 3 pages of contact information as to people who should be notified when we hold special events or lectures or whatever. Now, that doesn't mean we would notify all 30 on every specific occasion. What it does mean, though, is that we would certainly go through the list each time and see, oh, is it pertinent for this one, what have you. So everything is in 2 or 3 pages. Dominique did a real nice job on this. And this is something that we really should have done a while ago. But it's just one of those things like, you know, a creaking door in your house. You know, it takes you 10 years to wake up and figure that this thing has been bothering you. And then you get it fixed and you say, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? So anyway, again, thank you very much, Dominique. Excellent job. Now, item 10, the last Arbor Day plaque preparation. And I've been dealing with Dave Kratzer, our township manager, on this. So as you all know, last November 9th, we held our first Arbor Day celebration. And going forward, I talked to Dave, and my suggestion was to tie into the national date. Even though the national date is not totally national, states basically can do what they want. But most states, not all, tie into the national date, which is the last Friday in April. And this year, that would be the, I think, 26th or 25th. And we're thinking about having our second Arbor Day celebration on that Saturday, which would be the day after. So the plaque, these plaques, there's not too many people in the country who make these plaques, so it's kind of a time-consuming process. But we just got the final proof the other day, and they're absolutely beautiful. They're metal, they're cast. It's about 13 inches by 10 inches with a little bump out with a tree. Really, really quality piece. And then it's between, about $850 or $60, which I thought was a little high at first, but then when I talked to like Derek and other people, they say these things are expensive. And this is in the tree in front of the administration building. So I think we ought to go, first class. So we will have that plaque done relatively soon. Now, April 26, 2025, we are visioning as the second Arbor Day celebration. So what we're thinking about doing is somewhat similar to the first Arbor Day celebration. The first Arbor Day celebration, the tree was dedicated to all the staff, the boards, the commissions, the volunteers, who we said make Lower Makefield Township a great place to live. So I think for the first Arbor Day celebration, that was entirely appropriate. Now, for the second one, we're looking for some input. What I'm thinking of is that there's a lot of organizations in Lower Makefield Township that have served the community very well over a number of years. And I think we want to select one of those communities. Like just off the top of my head, I was thinking the Martha Washington Garden Club that started in 1935, Friends of the Delaware Canal, the Delaware Riverkeeper. The list goes on and on and on. So we're going to select one of those groups, and we're envisioning a celebration similar to the first one, only a little larger. We're thinking of having, a meeting in the room afterwards and maybe have some coffee and donuts and that sort of thing. So what do you think about that, John?
I'm very much in favor of donuts. And those who know that we just opened a new donuts shop within Lower Makefield, Duck Donuts.
Ooh.
Yes. So yeah, no, I always have to make sure to look out for our businesses here in Lower Makefield.
So do we.
But yeah, no, I think there would be general support for synchronizing and making sure that we continue to have those events and get people engaged that way. So yeah.
Sure. And if you want, John, we will actually let you select the donuts.
Oh.
So, all right. So that's what we're thinking about. And once we decide, on the organization that should be so honored, we'll have a similar plaque made. Okay. All right. Yeah. The next item, the Environmental Stewardship Award plaque. That's almost finished right now. But we have asked the board for a date, and we were thinking like March 5th or March 19th. We have not heard back from the board yet. Generally, it was held the last BOS meeting in February or the first or second BOS meeting in March. We're very flexible, but we would like to know fairly soon, though, because there's a lot of logistics to take care of this, and the awardees. It's a whole bunch of kids, or I say kids, young adults. They're not children. So as soon as we have a date, we can organize all that and then get back to the board. So if you could be helpful with us, John, that would be.
I'll be sure to mention that to the chair.
Okay. Yeah. All right. The next item is the EAC and township newsletters. What we are having trouble with is we use a mail server, and Paul Roden has been doing our newsletters for years. And Paul actually suggested that I talk to you, John, because he said you're in that kind of business.
Yeah, so in the interest of full
in
the interest of full disclosure, I work for a company called Zeta Global. It's a very large AI marketing cloud, and it's one of the largest email service providers in the world. So very familiar with the space. And I'm subject to Regulation FD, so please do not take anything that I say as a representation to buy or sell the stock in any way, shape, or form. Hope that disclosure works for you. But yes, I'm very familiar.
Well, the problem that we're having is that I don't know the name of the server, but I can certainly get that from Paul. And Paul apologized. Unfortunately, he had a funeral service to go to this evening.
I'll be there too.
So, anyway, but the server, the problem is it's costing us not a lot of money, about 11 or 12 bucks a month, I think. But the issue is that when we took that circular, for instance, for our coming up lecture, it chops it all up somehow. And Paul's got to play around with it to get it in one piece. And he's had issues with that, over the years. So I don't know if anybody knows of another service or, maybe that we can use, or maybe talking to that service. Maybe I have Paul do that and just find out what's going on.
There are other tools that Paul could use that might help him, free tools to help organize the content before it's loaded into. And I believe, does he use MailChimp or something like that?
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
So I'd be more than willing to sit down with him and show him like hands on keyboard how to do some of that stuff if that's of interest to him. If he wants to, when I see him, we can certainly talk about it. Generally within the township, I think we need to really think through our communication strategy. We have a lot of stuff to tell people, things that we tell people on multiple channels, whether it's the newsletter that you get sent to your door or the emails that we send or the social media posts. And there needs to be a way of coordinating, scheduling that and making sure that we're getting the right audience for the right message. And that's something that I've tried to get board members engagement. We're working on that. I think in terms of in the interim, I can certainly help Paul with the tool that he uses and help him do that. So that's not a problem.
We have about 300 or 400, well, between 300 and 500 names, on our list. And these are all, well, we haven't checked them in a while, but generally these are names of people who have come to environmental lectures and are interested in what we're doing here. So I think it's important that they get the message. I think Paul might have two lists. He might have a total list and one of just Lower Makefield Township people too. I'm not exactly sure. But these lectures, we open, we're all in this together. So we open it basically anybody who wants to come. So, but that's very generous of you, John, to talk to Paul about that. This is an area I know very little about, and maybe I would like to keep it that way too. But Paul's, like I said, he's our resident expert. So thank you for your offer. All right, the next item on the agenda is odds and ends. And Alan, you wanted to talk about the Lower Makefield Township Stormwater Management Subcommittee.
Yeah, last fall, a LMT Stormwater Management Subcommittee formed, and its purpose was to review the Phase 2 stormwater ordinance changes that our consultant, what are they? They're HRG, Jonathan Robinson in particular, put together. And we had a meeting this last Monday, and we went through a version that's pretty much done, and comments were made and revisions made. And so it's pretty much complete at this point. And the schedule is, I think the supervisors will be talking about it on March 5th at your meeting, just kind of the broad aspects of it. And it is a really good ordinance. There's some good stuff in it. And it's definitely going to reduce any contribution of new developments to flooding in the township, because it really does minimize runoff. So the supervisors are going to discuss it March 5th. Did I say who's in the committee?
No.
Okay, it's me. It's somebody from the Planning Commission, and right now that's Colin Coyle, Jim Majewski, Dan Grenier, and Dan McLoon on the committee. So the Planning Commission is going to review it on March 10th, and we're supposed to review it at our March 13th meeting, so I'll send out a copy of it. But let me warn you, it's dry reading, so get ready. And after that, I think the schedule is for the supervisors to vote to advertise it on March 19th, if everything goes as planned. So I thought I'd let you know about that because I am going to be sending out the final draft of it in the next week or two for you to look at. But as I said, I'm warning you, it's not simple, but it's good stuff. It's going to do its job. So it's a good thing.
Well, this is going to augment the low impact development ordinance. The law, if I remember correctly, the last time you and I discussed that, the LID ordinance that went in late 2006 was really cutting edge at the time. And I think most of the provisions are probably still in use today. So this isn't going to get rid of that. It's just going to add to it. Is that correct?
Right. It's going to update things. Pennsylvania DEP is coming out with new guidance and for the MS4 permit and their model ordinance for stormwater. And this is incorporating most of that stuff in it. So we're going to be right up to date. We're going to be, thoroughly modern. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, sounds good. And Kevin, you were working, I know, with Dave initially on the possibility of some solar in Lower Makefield Township. Could you give us an update on what's happening there?
I don't have an update on that.
Okay. Maybe before the next meeting, you want to check with Dave and maybe have something to report next meeting?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I know as far as the solar is concerned, I think there's a lot of grant money available right now again. And it seems to, ebb and flow. And that's unfortunate because if you're really serious about it, you're going to have consistent policy over the years. Okay.
Jim, is that going to be dependent on the energy survey that they just got granted for?
I don't know. It's a good question. It might be.
I mean, that might be findings that come out, as a result of that survey.
Yeah, that's a good possibility too. I mean, we looked at solar here several years ago when we had the Cool Cities program, and the problem was at the time there were a lot of grants, and then all of a sudden they disappeared. What actually happened is in New Jersey had the most booming solar industry in the United States, and it was grant driven. And then the government started cutting back the money, and they killed the industry literally overnight. And it was really, really a shame because, this is the way we got to go. I mean, these fossil fuels are causing nothing but problems. But anyway, okay, I'm off my speaker's platform now. So that's basically everything that we wanted to discuss tonight. Now we just open it to any comments that anybody might want to have.
Well, I'd like to invite Cheryl to the single hauler trash presentation whenever it is, because Cheryl, don't you have some background in it?
Yeah, yes. A couple of the portfolio companies that we manage are waste haulers, and I'm very familiar with that. And the company I used to work for had a whole hauling division.
Okay, so yeah, you'd be a good asset to have there.
All right. I don't.
Hey, Jim, this is Lori. Can I just ask your opinion on that Energy Transfer Sunoco pipeline issue? I know I've been getting the updates and all of that, but I was just wondering what your committee feels about that. You think we're okay and no issues in Lower Makefield Township, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are I don't know a lot about it, unfortunately, but maybe somebody here does.
Yeah, so I can give you a little bit of an update. I believe our intent is to have Energy Transfer in an upcoming meeting to discuss the issue with them directly. Where the leak occurred does impact some Lower Makefield residents off of Mount Airy Road who have well water. And at this time, they're going through a process of testing the folks with well water that are directly impacted. The township, this is not within the issue, and leak occurred in another municipality. Once we were informed, we started communicating stuff on our website, and we have reached out to the folks that we think could possibly be affected. And I don't want to speak without certainty. We're also, we're looking at the folks that we think that potentially could have an issue. But more broadly, we're looking, again, we talked about audiences a moment ago and how we communicate with people, understanding all the people that live within, say, 1,500 feet of a pipeline is helpful for us, so that if we ever have a situation in Lower Makefield, many people do know that the pipeline does run through Lower Makefield. There's a Williams pipeline as well. So we want to make sure that, residents are safe. And we continue to look into that. But if you live in Lower Makefield, most folks are serviced by Pennsylvania American Water, and you wouldn't be impacted at this time in any way, to the best of our knowledge. And I don't want to, I don't know everything associated with it, and the briefings I've had are limited. So there is a meeting tonight in Upper Makefield if you're.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, John. Is there any other issues that anybody wants to bring up and discuss?
Well, I'd like to follow up. John, how far away from the Lower Makefield Township line, Mount Airy, was this contamination found? Like a mile, 2 miles?
I'm not exactly sure.
Because I thought it was a ways.
Yeah, well, yes. But the question is, I'm not 100% sure of, this is where it gets a little challenging. The length of time the leak occurred, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
Right. And if they had gotten all of it, right? Or if there are other stuff. And so there's, I think, an open dialogue for us to have on Wednesday, if they do come before the board, and to talk about that. Because one of the things, generally, pipelines can be very safe if monitored. However, when you do have a leak, how quickly do you respond? How do you turn off? Make sure that you correct it and have guaranteed that that has been restored. So I think there's some questions about the monitoring that we don't necessarily know 100% of, and I don't want to speak because a lot of people get excessively concerned, and maybe you're jumping very far. And I also don't have the certainty to give people on that. So I don't want people to be, so I can't give you with metaphysical certitude it happened here, it's limited to here. I simply don't know the details on that. But happy to talk. I know that we're going to be talking about some PowerPoint soon, so.
Okay, any other comments before we end the meeting? Okay, this is good. 2 minutes of 8. I mean, 2 minutes of 7. Good job. Good job. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and I hope all of you enjoy the rest of the evening, and I hope all of you attend our wonderful lecture this Saturday. Doors open 9:30. Lecture starts at 10. And Mike gave a lecture a couple of years ago on monarch butterflies, and the guy really is impressive. He really knows his stuff. So I think it would be a nice thing to attend. Please tell your friends. And as usual, it's a free lecture. We never charge for our lectures in Lower Makefield. So thanks again, everybody.
All right. See you later.
Yeah.